Okay, so you're planning a trip to Disneyland. It's supposed to be pure magic from the very start. But let's be real. That first hour after you land, it can seriously make or break the entire vibe of the trip. So in this explainer, we're going to map out a super simple plan to make your family's airport arrival smooth, safe, and believe it or not, completely stress-free. You've got the park tickets, you've planned the days, but have you really thought about that first critical step? The one from the airport to the hotel? When you've got kids in tow, that part right there can be a massive headache. I mean, picture it. You land, everybody's exhausted, and suddenly you're trying to juggle all the luggage, a stroller, and a couple of very, very impatient little travelers. That first hour can feel like absolute chaos, and it can totally set the wrong tone for the whole vacation. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be like that? Not at all. This explainer is your step-by-step plan to turn that potential mess into a calm, controlled, and genuinely easy start to your whole Disneyland adventure. So here's how we're going to break it down. First up, we'll run through the arrival stress test to figure out why it gets so hectic. Then we're going to build your pre-flight blueprint and an on-the-ground game plan. We'll also dive into the big rideshare versus pre-booked debate. And finally, we'll make sure that trip home is just as smooth. Okay, so let's start with what we all feel. Why exactly is that first hour after landing so overwhelming when you're traveling with your family? Just think about it. So many of these things are completely out of your control, right? How far your gate is, those endless baggage delays, and of course, that legendary Southern California traffic. Any one of these can totally derail your plans, especially when you've got tired kids on your hands. So what do the pros do? Well, experienced family travelers use what we're going to call the calm arrival method. And it's not magic, I promise. It's really just a simple, proactive way of thinking that completely changes the game. And the secret sauce for this method? It all comes down to just three things. First, being totally honest about how much luggage you actually have. Second, and this is crucial, confirming your car seat situation before you leave home. And third, building in a nice big time buffer so you're never, ever rushing. Nailing these three things is the real game changer. Okay, let's move on to our second section and see how this all comes together. Your pre-flight blueprint. This is all about the work you put in before travel day to guarantee that smooth arrival. The blueprint is really just three simple steps. First, book your ride from the airport early. Just get it done and stop worrying about it. Second, pick a vehicle that actually fits your family and all your stuff. And third, have a rock-solid plan for car seats. Now let's zoom in on step 2, because underestimating your luggage is probably the #1 mistake families make. A regular sedan is just not going to cut it for 4 suitcases, a stroller, and all the carry-ons. That's why an SUV is so often the way to go. It gives you the space you actually need and lets the kids stretch out a bit after a long flight. And when we're talking about car seats, here's the bottom line. Safety isn't something you just figure out at the curb. It needs a plan, a calm attitude, and the patience to get it right. Seriously, the most important thing here is to never let anyone rush you or pressure you into skipping this vital safety step. All right, you've done the prep work. Now for section 3, the on-the-ground game plan. This is your strategy for the moment the plane's wheels touch down. Think about that little journey from your airplane seat to the car. You've got to deplane, walk to baggage claim, which can feel like a marathon, make a pit stop at the restroom, put the stroller back together, then find your ride. This little timeline right here shows you exactly why that time buffer we talked about isn't just nice, it's essential. If you only remember one thing from this section, please make it this. Communication is everything. Give your driver your flight number so they can track you, shoot them a text when you land, and another one when you're heading to the pickup spot. This super simple step prevents so much confusion and wasted time waiting around with antsy kids. Okay, this brings us to a huge decision point in section 4. Should you roll the dice with a rideshare service, or should you pre-book your transportation? It really boils down to a question of control versus uncertainty. The trade-off is pretty clear. With rideshares, you're facing a lot of unknowns. Will the trunk be big enough? Will they actually have the car seat you requested? But with a pre-booked service, you get control. You get guaranteed space for your stuff, confirmed car seats, and total reliability. For families, let me tell you, that control is worth its weight in gold. And finally, let's talk about the end of your trip. Section 5 is all about nailing their return journey. Because let's face it, after a few days at the park, everyone is exhausted and your luggage has probably doubled with souvenirs. So here's a simple checklist for a super smooth departure. Confirm your pickup time based on what your airline recommends, not just a guess. Build in extra time for loading up all your stuff at the hotel, have snacks ready to go for the ride, and most importantly, plan a departure that feels calm, not like a frantic, last-minute dash. So, let's boil this entire explainer down to the 3 most important takeaways. Number 1, always confirm your car seats beforehand. 2, be realistic about your luggage and book a vehicle that can actually handle it all. And 3, build a realistic time buffer into your arrival plan. You get these 3 right, and you are golden.
Look, at the end of the day, the magic of your vacation doesn't have to wait until you're walking through the gates of the park. It can start the second you land with an arrival that feels easy and totally in your control. So the real question is, how will you choose to begin your family's next great memory?